Welcome back to John's Garage. Today we have the Acura 3.2 TL in the garage. It's a 2000 model year and it needs an oil change. So let's get everything together that we need to do the oil change. So first of all, you're going to need some disposable gloves. Got these at Walmart. Hands are going to get a little messy. You're going to need a funnel to fill the oil. You're going to need a oil filter cap wrench that fits on your oil filter. And the oil filter we're using today is a Fram 3593A. It's pretty standard for Hondas and Acuras of this generation. And from the dealer, you're going to need a oil drain washer. And that is part number 94109-14000. And that's the same drain washer for most Hondas and Acuras of this generation. And tools you're going to need is a 17mm socket, a 3/8 ratchet, and a 6-inch extension. And that's going to be for your oil filter cap wrench. Then you're going to need some oil, and in this car, since I drive so much and I change the oil every 3,000 miles, I'm going to use just standard motor oil. 5W30 is recommended for this engine, and I've always used Quaker State since I purchased this car, and so it's the same oil all the time. And if you got a spare clean container that's had nothing in it but motor oil, nothing else ever in there, you're going to want to drain some of this. This is a 5-quart, and for this car we need 4.6 quarts of oil. So measuring that out would be take off 378 milliliters. So I've marked this bottle to take off 0.4 of a quart, and that's looking at the markings, an approximation of 378 milliliters. Then I poured off, and we're going to set this aside. So now in our big container we only have 4.6 quarts for our oil change, including the filter change. Okay. And then you're also going to need a oil drain pan and some ramps and some wheel chocks. These are just 4x4s that are cut up just to hold the back wheels while it's up on these ramps. These are Rhino ramps that I got from Pep Boys. And then you're going to need some paper towels because it gets a little messy changing oil. So that's everything we need. Okay, now the car is up on the ramps. Let's go to the back wheel. Put a chalk under the front of the tire. And chalk under the back of the tire. That's the way I like to do it. Pin one wheel so that it doesn't move. And then we'll come over here and check our ramps. And that tire's on there good. Check our other ramp, that tire's on there good. So the car is safe to get under. Now we'll take our keys and put our keys aside so nobody starts the engine. So we've got the car in park, and the parking brake is on, the foot brake. Let's open the hood. This car, the hood secondary release is just to the right of the emblem. There we go. Okay. So one thing we're going to do before we get under the car is we're going to take our oil filter and we're going to fill it with some clean motor oil, and then we're going to take a little bit on our finger and lubricate this rubber O-ring so that when we're twisting this on, the rubber O-ring doesn't bind or tear or anything. So we'll just take another funnel that's small enough. If you don't have one, just aim carefully and pour a little bit of oil in there, and it's going to soak into the filter material. Give it a minute and then pour a little more. You want to fill your oil filter up about halfway. And that way when you start the engine, the oil pump is drawing some oil out of the filter and it's not going to run dry. It's just something I like to do on any car where the filter doesn't mount upside down where it all drains out. If you got a car that mounts this way or this way, it's a good idea to put some oil in the filter first. So we have 4.6 quarts of oil measured, and so we're going to take some of that and pour into here before we go into the car. Okay, so getting ready to get under the car, going to take the oil drain pan, our filter that's got the O-ring lubricated and a little bit of oil in it, our O-ring for the drain plug, the drain bolt, our 17 millimeter socket with our ratchet, our oil filter cap wrench with a 6-inch extension, and the funnel we don't need underneath. I'll put that up top. And the other thing I like to do is I like to set oil on top of the engine so I know there's no oil in the engine. So let's take off the oil filler cap so we can get some air in as it's draining, and let's pull the dipstick up a little. That way when the oil drains out. Now the engine temperature, we ran it for a little while. You want it to be warm but not burning hot, because when that oil comes out, some of it's going to get on your hands, and you know, these are just latex gloves. It will still burn you. So warm oil drains out faster than cold oil. So have it warm but not burning hot. Okay, let's get under the car. I'm going to take a light under the car. You don't need a light, but I'm going to use one for photography purposes. Okay, so let's go under the car. And here is the oil pan. Okay, so what we want to do is get our socket wrench and have it set for lefty-loosey. Since I've got the camera turned the other way, it's going to look like it's going the other way. Okay, so lefty-loosey, undo that. So unthread that. Okay, that's the bolt. So I've got the bolt there. Set that on a paper towel. The washer is still stuck up there. You want to make sure that that metal washer comes off. So let's let some of that oil drain out, and then when it slows down, I'll get that washer off of there, but you want to make sure you get it off. Okay, the flow of oil is slowing down now. Let's grab that washer off of there. I want to use the bolt just to give it a nudge off of there. There we go. Okay, so I've got that O-ring off of there. We're going to throw this away and use a new one, so I'll throw that on a paper towel for now. Okay, so now we want to remove the oil filter, and it's next to the front passenger tire. So we got our cap wrench with our extension, and there is our filter. A little dirty because it's been raining out here. So line up the slots on that. Take our socket wrench. It's always fun to hold a camera while you're doing this. And just turn that filter counterclockwise, lefty-loosey. Okay, since our oil pan is still dripping, make sure that the catch pan is lined up to catch that. Don't move it too far to get the filter. So we turn this a sufficient number of times so it's loose. We can take off our cap wrench now. And just turn that by hand till we get it off. A bunch of oil is going to come out. We'll just let that drain for a while, since I don't want to get both my hands in there because I'm trying to hold a camera at the same time. Okay, it's been about 30 seconds, most of the oil's drained out, so let's continue unscrewing that filter. And there's a lot of threads on these spin-on filters. Oh, there we go. Okay, more oil coming out. Let's just dump this out. And make sure that rubber O-ring came off. And you want to look up there and make sure that it's not stuck to the oil pump. So we got it here. It stayed with the filter. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So let's just set that in our pan to continue draining. And let that drain out, and then we'll stick our new filter on there. Okay, so now we've got our new Fram filter ready to go. So let's get that up there and line up the threads carefully and start turning by hand, and you'll feel the threads align, and then just start spinning. You don't want to force it, don't cross thread it, you'll damage the threads and then you'll have a bigger repair on your hands. So just keep spinning that by hand. Keep turning it as tight as you can with your hand. And then once that's as far as you can go, we'll get our cap wrench on there. Turn our socket wrench so that it's righty-tighty. Okay, so take this and turn it. And you don't want to over tighten it and damage it. Just snug it up on there. You don't need a dying strain on it. Just get it on there tight so it's not going to leak. And then wiggle your wrench off of there. Okay, so our filter is on. Now let's put our drain plug back in with a new washer. New metal O-ring on our drain bolt. Okay, so we've got our drain bolt. Get the camera focused here. Just line up the threads and put it in by hand all the way in. You don't want to damage those threads or you'll be changing your whole oil pan. Now take your 17mm socket and snug it up. The torque spec on this is 29 foot-pounds, so don't put it on too tight. The aluminum O-ring that you just put on there with the bolt, that aluminum will expand as the car gets warm and hot, and that is going to seal to prevent leaks. So just wipe up any oil drippings and we're done underneath the car. And people ask me, why do you change your own oil if it costs about 20 bucks for the oil and filter and that's about the same as what you pay to go somewhere roughly. I like to change my own oil because while I'm under the car, I'm inspecting a lot of things and I'm wiping down all the surfaces that might have some grease or oil and looking for leaks. I'm looking at the suspension parts. I'm looking for any signs of wear on bushings, ball joints, oil leaks, transmission leaks. I'm looking for any damage under the car. And I'm just wiping everything down while I'm under here, so it's a good time to inspect underneath the car. Some of the things that I inspect while I'm under the car is it's a front wheel drive, so you have rubber CV boots with constant velocity joints on the axle. So there's an inner boot, an outer boot, and you want to look at those boots and see if there's any tears. You want to look at your steering bellows, make sure there's no tears in that. So all the rubber components, you're looking for any damage, any leaks while you're under the car. Okay, so now we're back on top of the car. It's time to fill it up. And the spec for this car is 4.6 US quarts. We've already drained off 0.4 of a quart from this 5-quart container. So we're good to pour the whole thing in. Let that drip out a little bit. So that is 4.6 quarts, 5W30. So now, let's check our dipstick. The car's up on ramps, so it's not going to be exactly level. We just want to make sure we have enough oil in here before we start the engine. You never ever want to start an engine without the proper amount of oil. Okay, so it needs to be between those two dots, and we are at the top dot there, so that is good. We're good to start the engine. So while the car is still up in the air, we want to start it and look for leaks underneath the car. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the engine's running. Let's go underneath and check for any leaks. Okay, so be very careful under the car while it's running. Don't touch anything. Don't get your clothes or your hair caught in anything rotating. So we're looking at the oil drain plug, no leaks. We're looking at the filter, no leaks. That's good. No drips on the floor. So we're good. Turn the engine. So since there's no leaks and the car is running, we're going to go ahead and take it off the ramps now. So let's remove the rear wheel shocks. So back under the hood, now that we're on level ground, we're going to check the oil using a clean, lint-free towel. So we wiped it off. And the oil is right at the top mark, and that's where we want it. So we've got our cap on, dipstick in. Let's go inside the car now and reset the maintenance required light. Okay, so inside the car, you want to hold down the select and reset at the same time and hold it down and then turn on the key. Okay, so while holding both buttons, I'm going to turn on the key, and that maintenance required light is going to go off in a minute. Okay, it's off. So we can let go of the buttons, turn off the key, and that light is designed to come on at 7,500 miles, but that's way too long for an oil change, especially on conventional motor oil. I change my oil every 3,000 miles, and so you won't have that maintenance required light coming on during the 3,000 mile interval. So you want to write down your mileage and see if I can focus this camera on here. $601,407. That's 601,407 miles. I did my oil change, so I'm going to write on a sticker that it's 603,407. No, 604,407. That's 3,000 miles. 604,407. I'll change the oil again. Okay, so now that we're done with the oil change, this box will get recycled in the recycling bin. That O-ring goes in the trash. My AutoZone down the street does not recycle filters, so I'm going to let this drain out as much as possible, and then that's going in the trash. And this oil is going to AutoZone to get recycled, so I'm going to wipe this all down with the towels I used wiping down the car. And we've checked everything is good. And with that, we'll call that job done.